The Bengals address their weaknesses while also taking the best player available in Mock Draft 2.0. Hi again, everybody. I'm James Rapien of allbengals.com and Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Welcome into CBT, where we're about to do our second mock draft of the season, and the NFL draft just 17 days away. Happy Mock Draft Monday to you, and welcome in. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. We have a ton for you, including an exclusive interview with Tony Pike this week and so much more. So buckle up, strap in, and get ready. This week we did the mock draft on the Draft Network Simulator, and I got to be honest with you. The way the board broke, I mean, maybe someone finds a flaw, but this was a pretty damn good mock draft, and it started with Devonte Wyatt, the top interior, three technique in this draft, interior defensive lineman, the guy out of Georgia. This is the top player at the Bengals' biggest defensive line need. And he fell to 31, and it probably is unrealistic. He's expected to go in the 19 to 25 range. But whether you look at Dane Brugler's big board and his draft guide, is just awesome. It came out last week. I've been looking at it a ton. Wyatt, the number one defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman in this draft class for Brugler. If he's there at 31, I'm taking him, barring something unforeseen. I don't expect him to be there, but he could be. And if he is, then you certainly consider taking him, and ultimately do take him in that scenario. Just to give you an idea of who was off the board, Kyler Gordon was off the board, Kenyon Green was off the board, Kyer Elam was off the board, Tyler Linderbaum was off the board, George Karlaftis, was off the board, Zion Johnson, Trent McDuffie. So a lot of the bigger names, it made it a pretty obvious pick to me, but you never know. And so at 31, you take Devonte Wyatt. At 63, well, it opens things up a bit. Will it be a corner? Will they go with an offensive player? And it just happens to be that the top tight end in the draft is still available at 63rd overall. And I think that this is also probably I wouldn't say best case scenario, but when you measure the need and getting a guy like McBride who ran a 4.5, who had really good production, is clearly the top tight end in this class for a lot of people, including Dane Brugler, you take him. And Trey McBride was available, so I took him. And I'm excited about it, honestly. I look at round 2. Perrion Winfrey went really early. Jaquan Brisker went very early. And then some of the quarterbacks went. David Ojabo went. Sky Moore off the board, for those wondering. And Roger McCreary went off the board if you're thinking cornerback. And so by the time all these guys were off the board, it's like, okay, well, what should they do? Where should they go? And to me, it made a lot of sense to go with McBride. And he's a stud. And he's not going to be, Eifert, and he's not that level of player, at least at this stage. But I think he can be a contributor right away, and tight ends take a few years to develop, so you're able to get the top one in the draft. You can't argue with that, especially given where the Bengals were in the draft. So they addressed defensive line, they addressed tight end, two of their biggest needs. Let's see what they do in round 3 here. And look, a lot more guys naturally went off the board. John Mechie III, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Darian Kennard, I know some people on this channel like him, out of Kentucky. Cade Otton, another tight end, went off the board. Cole Strange, center out of Chattanooga, off the board. And so it's like, all right, well, probably not going center. Jeremy Ruckert, I know a lot of you like Jeremy Ruckert. He was off the board in round 3 before the Bengals came back around. But you know who wasn't? My guy, Alec Pierce. And the Bengals actually hosted Alec Pierce for a top 30 visit, according to Pro Football Network. And I love this. I do, because I think Pierce, a couple reasons why. One, got to watch him a lot. 52 receptions, 880-plus yards as a Bearcat last season, 8 touchdowns, averaged 17 yards per catch. And he's a guy that has really long arms, 33 inches, good size, 6'3", 200-plus pounds. And he runs a 4.41. And he jumps out of the gym, 40.5-inch vertical. That translates, at minimum, as a jump baller. But here's the thing I like. Luke Fickell on Rich Eisen's show went on there last week, and he's like, oh, yeah, this kid can do a ton that we based on our offense, couldn't utilize skill sets, different things. We used him as a jump ball type guy, and that's kind of what he acknowledged. And so to me, the idea of him playing some slot, moving around, all of that, I think would be certainly possible. The other part I like, he went up against Ahmad Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant a ton in practice. And so he was available, and I felt like he was clearly the best player available. A couple picks later, just to give you an idea of who else went right afterwards. Troy Anderson out of Montana State, Jesse Luketa out of Penn State, JoJo DeMond out of Nebraska, Nick Cross, and I might get a name wrong or two, James Cook out of Georgia. I might get a name wrong or two here, but I just wanted to give you an idea of who was there, who was available, who wasn't. Greg Dulcich actually fell to the first pick of the 4th round, which is surprising. Jake Ferguson a few picks later, so 2 more off the board as far as tight ends go. Cam Taylor-Britt, who was in consideration at that 3rd round spot, but Alec Pierce, I would have him higher on my board than Britt. Maji Sanders went. Alec Lidstrom went. Jelani Woods, I know a lot of people probably in on Jelani Woods, went at 121. So now as we get down, I was looking, and I got to be honest, this is kind of the cheat code because you know me, I'm thinking offensive line. Cam Jurgens seems lower on all of these consensus boards, whether you look at Pro Football Focus, the Draft Network, all of these different ones, Pro Football Network. Cam Jurgens, interior lineman out of Nebraska, center. Daniel Jeremiah heard last week that there's a chance, or said last week on his podcast, Move the Sticks, that there's a chance Jurgens goes ahead of Linderbaum. And it would be a surprise, but he said he wouldn't be shocked. So I would be a bit surprised if Jurgens falls to round 4, mainly the end of round 4. But if he's there, and he is there, and I just admitted that it was a cheat code, I would take Cam Jurgens there. And so, again, now you've addressed interior offensive line, interior defensive line. You've added a wide receiver, and you've added a tight end. Well, James, what about cornerback? What are the Bengals going to do at cornerback? And that's the part of this that gets interesting because I was feeling the same way. And so you get Wyatt, you get McBride, you get Pierce, you get Jurgens. Let's find some corners. Chase Lucas out of Arizona State at 174 in the 5th round. And then I double back, 209, 6th round pick, Kalon Barnes, the kid who just ran 4.23 at Baylor. Get both of those guys in. Hopefully one of them can work out for you. You double dip at the cornerback position because you missed out early on the premier corners. They weren't available at 31. Didn't make sense at 63. And so now the way the board fell, you get 2 of these day 3 guys, and you hope that you can develop them. At 226 with the first 7th round pick, I went edge, Micheal Clemons out of Texas A&M. And then I went with a guy that's potentially an undrafted free agent, a wide receiver, another Nebraska kid. So 2 Nebraska players on this team. But Samori Toure, wide receiver. I do think that the Bengals could double dip here. For the 2nd straight mock, I have them double dipping at receiver. 1 in the middle rounds, 1 really, really late. I think they've expressed some interest in Toure in the past, and so I met with him. I think there's a chance, right? And so overall, you look at this, and I think this does a lot of what the Bengals need. Yeah, they didn't get the cornerback early, and a lot of you are saying they don't need another receiver, but I kind of think they do. You never know. They're really just 3 deep at receiver, and you get in a guy like Pierce who hopefully you can teach to play in the slot and move around and do all of those things that can be a big play threat. I think that's a big boost on offense. Speaking of boost, Trey McBride could give them a boost long term. And Devonte Wyatt and Cam Jurgens just improve and gives the boost to the trenches that you need on the interior. The thing I don't like also, not just waiting on corner, waiting on edge till the beginning of the 7th round. Not ideal. It isn't. But ultimately, if you're telling me that you got Eli Apple, they re-signed Trey Flowers, and then you got these young kids learning behind them, there's going to be youth somewhere. And I could see it being at corner, and I could see it being mid to late round type guys if this scenario plays out. Again, Devonte Wyatt, Trey McBride, Pierce, Jurgens. Those top 4, it's just a grand slam. 4 runs are in. And so what do you think? Do you think this nailed it? Do you think this didn't? Are you freaking out because I didn't take a corner earlier? The board didn't match up. It really didn't. But Let me know what you think about this mock draft. I like it better than last week. You get Wyatt, top player at his position. You get McBride, top player at his position. Alec Pierce, one of the top athletes at wide receiver in this draft, and the production backs it up, which is really, really rare. And if he's there in round 3, again, might not be. In Cam Jurgens, I already told you it's kind of a cheat code. But who knows? You never know. Never say never with the draft. That's the fun part about it. What say you about this mock draft? I know what we're going to say. Well, we like this draft, and we're going to do another one next week and one the week after, and we're going to have a ton of guests and insight for you in between. And I am compiling a list of all the players the Bengals have met with. We'll have a video on that at some point, but it's churning and burning by the day, and Alec Pierce certainly one of them. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and for our channel coordinator, Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien, signing off for now, right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk.